today is the annual, I talk about all the short story things I read in the year that no one clicks on, but those people who really love them, and you guys, we're here together. This is where the true fans are, this video. Because every year, this is my worst performing video at this time of year, and I refuse to stop making it because I love my short story collections and anthologies, and they deserve a nice centralized location. I will have all of my other short story recommendation videos down below, because every year, I just talk about all the short story collections and anthologies I've read, and you can choose to pick some of them out or whatever. I love short stories. I love anthologies. I love collections. I love buddy reading them. I think for the most part, I buddy read everything on this list except for maybe one. Yeah. All but one of these I have had some sort of interactive discussion experience with. I think it really enhances it. I think there's a lot of fun you can have in short story spaces that you can't have in long form. I love it all. And we're going to talk about the 8. And I have them loosely ranked. I'm going to say loosely. And none of these are bad. So I still would recommend all of these. Just for my taste, I've loosely ranked them. In general, a collection is normally stronger for me than an anthology. And I think this, the difference, if you don't know, at least the way I define it, I don't know if there's like actually some person out there who like rigorously checks in on who uses these definitions, but a short story collection is one author writing a bunch of works. An anthology is a group of authors. And so for that reason, when you're testing out a group of authors, it can be harder to have as consistently hits, whereas if I have a collection and I really vibe with that author's theme and message and writing style, it's just a lot easier for a collection to like holistically land for me, okay? So that's why when we get especially to like the top 3, which are really hard for me, sometimes just the fact that something was a collection hedged it out just a little bit. So number 8, this is the second collection I've read by this author. I have forgotten his name, but this is Universal Love. I think Children of the New World was the one I read last year. And I remember less of this than I do Children of the New World. Which, I mean, generally speaking, I loved buddy reading this with Evie. We had a great time. But his sci-fi thought experiments don't typically stay with me. That said, if you want contemporary, near-future sci-fi thought experiments that are, like, really easy to read, get to the point really quickly, like, in terms of a crafted short story, he is good at the pacing of a short story. You are in, you are out, you get what he wanted to give you. It's just that for me, it doesn't leave anything behind, and I've read so many phenomenal sci-fi short stories. But the thing that I do think is his strongest point is not everyone is really good at making an engagingly paced short story. One that really sets the field, introduces you to the topics and characters at hand, gets you in, gets you out. Like, I think that can be really hard for a lot of people, especially long-form authors who are used to having more of, like, a build-up. So, would recommend his stuff. Probably Children of the New World more than this, just because that's the one I remember more stories from. But, in general, he's a fine author. Number 7 is one of... How many anthologies do I have on this list? I think I have 3 anthologies. Okay, this is my least favorite of the anthologies, but it doesn't make it bad. But it's also the longest, and I do notice an inverse correlation between length of anthology and my enjoyment. The sweet spot is like 300 pages, because I think that's when I'm like, okay, I've had enough voices telling me stories now. This is Africa Risen, though, and it is 500 pages, which is long. I mean, really happy so many authors got to have their voices put in something. But for me, I mean, I spent 2 months reading this, I think, with Shannon and Kristen. So we took it really slow so we wouldn't get burnt out on the stories, and there were definitely winners in this collection. But in general, the curation of it was, I think, darker than what I wanted on average. So it made it so that there were more 3.5 star stories than there were 4.5 or 5 star stories, basically. Still super solid anthology, wide range of voices and experiences and takes on fantasy and sci-fi. Still really great project, love the cover. But in general, that's why it's probably one of my least favorite anthologies on this list, because it's just long. It's just a little long for my taste, and it was a little darker, and not in a way that I think was sustainable for me, like with story after story. Although some of the more memorable stories for me are like, whoa, you went there. Like, there are some authors that just didn't hold back. Number 6, this was a surprise for me. This is Geometries of Belonging. This is a short story collection of works in this one cohesive world by an author. I've rarely read stuff like this when I haven't read any books in that series, but I think for this world, there's only maybe a novel and a novella right now. I do want to read those, and these are not connected to those characters, just the world, and this world is fascinating. I liked exploring this world. I liked the different forms this author was using. Sometimes it'd be poems, sometimes short stories, sometimes novelettes. I think the short stories and novelettes landed for me better than the poems, which kind of makes sense. But I just love wandering through this world, and some of the stories were very folklore. The author themselves is, I believe, genderqueer and autistic, and you get a lot of those themes there. And we have, like, the cultural world building and the world building of the magic is so enriched. You can tell the author spends a lot of time in this space, and I just really appreciated getting a lens into that and into some of the thematic conversations the author wanted to have with this world as our medium for that. So that was really cool. Honestly, though, when I was making this list, I forgot I read it this year. But now that I'm remembering it, it's like, yeah, I really want to pick up other things there because that was a time that I enjoyed having. So it's not that it wasn't memorable, because I can actually now vividly, while talking to you guys, think of these things. But when I'm not thinking about it, it doesn't come to mind, if that makes sense. Number 5 is the second anthology, Out There Screaming. This is the newest one on my list, probably, because it just came out in October. It's the Jordan Peele edited anthology. This is the second longest anthology, and it's more horror-based by Black authors. So this one, obviously, we knew going in, came with a bunch of dark themes. There were a lot of winners in here, though. There are some all-time favorite short stories in this collection. Like, Tochi Onibuchi left on the floor with that last story. It's so good. N.K. Jemisin, like, we start the collection with N.K. Jemisin, and we end the anthology with Tochi Onibuchi, and both of them just writing their butts off. It's so good. And there are just other ones that I just thought did exactly what I want horror to do. Not everything was a hit, but I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed Buddy reading this with my Patreon, and then we had a live show discussion, but like I said, it was really nice just Buddy reading it. It was one of the more successful Buddy reads of the year, which means I think I'm going to do more short stories with them in the future. But yeah, glad I picked it up. It was a good time. And number 4 is the translated short story collection I read that's all flash fiction. This is 10 Planets. So flash fiction kind of means just like 1 to 3 pages. And this was really interesting. So he's definitely more of a literary speculative author. So the translations are very impressive because the, intention of word choice and syntax and sentence form is really difficult to translate. And I think the translator did a phenomenal job. And, although there aren't many stories I remember specifically, I loved Buddy reading it, and I thought his mind was just so interesting. Sometimes he had sci-fi stories that reminded me of, like, Philip K. Dick. Sometimes he was just truly doing his own weird thing. The first story, I can't decide if it's bittersweet or if it's scary. Like, because they're so short, you can really mull them over and think about them a lot. And this was another one I Buddy read with Kristen and Shannon. Super good. And now these top 3, though, that we're going to get into are fairly interchangeable in terms of, like, my favorite short story things that I've read this year. The third one is only the third one because it's an anthology, and that is New Sons Volume 2. I have read New Sons Volume 1 as well, and it's also one of my top-tier anthologies of all time. This is like a 300-page anthology, which is perfect, and I think basically all but 1 or 2 stories were hits for me. Like, the hit ratio for my tastes in speculative short stories and this collection, out of this world. Loved it. Highly recommended if you are looking for, like, voices in short stories that I tend to really enjoy and you want to see if you align with my tastes. This is a great anthology with a great array of voices that I really appreciate. It's just really good, and it's really pretty. So if you just wanted a pretty book for your shelf, it's a pretty good time, and Solaris makes a nice binding on their book and everything. Number 2 is Drinking from Graveyard Wells, which, oh my gosh, was not expecting this. This came out of complete left field for me. It wasn't on any TBRs or lists or plans. It's just I did the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction project, so I picked this up. When I was talking at the start of this list with Universal Love, that author being able to, like, really get you in and out of a short story, she has perfected it. I am always instantly engaged with her characters, the themes, the premise, or I'm just curious, I'm engaged. Her stories, instantly. She hooks you, and it's not always with a traditional hook either. It's just like, yeah, I don't know who this person is, but this voice is intriguing. I want to hear the story. Bring me in. Tell me more. This is a Zimbabwean author, and you have stories in America with a diasporan person, or you are in Zimbabwe. Some are future, some are now. I don't know how many were past, but some went to the past and came back. I loved this collection. I think about buying it a lot. But if you're just like, I know nothing about Zimbabwe, I'm curious, you should read this. I learned quite a bit, but also it wasn't meant to teach either. It was just that, like, by experiencing these stories through characters who are Zimbabwean, I was learning things. There are differences, and you're just like, I wonder what that means, and you go Google something. One of the short stories is like a kid's story that she wrote for a different magazine, and it's based off one of the government officials. So we did this whole kind of looking back to look into that. This was another buddy read with Shannon and Kristen. We buddy read a lot of short stories together. So really loved that. This one is, I think, it's definitely, there are speculative short stories, but it does feel like it's probably more for literary fiction adjacent people, potentially. I don't know, I hesitate to say that, but it's not like as straightforward genre fiction as I feel like a lot of people would be expecting, even though there are some stories that I would point to and be like, no, that's a sci-fi short story, but in terms of the collection as a whole. And this last one's a cheat, and I don't care because I loved it. It's one of my favorite books of the year. I don't even know where it will rank when I finally do my favorite books of the year video, but this is Girl, Woman, Other. And is this technically a short story collection? Maybe not, but it feels like it. So hear me out. Each chapter is a different woman's perspective, or woman or non-binary person in this story. And they're interconnected, kind of like, a movie like Love Actually or something like that. But you don't get to go back to those character perspectives again. Like, you might see them later in another story. And we're hopping through time and through space, and I just love them. There are so many flawed, real, grounded individuals in these stories. And you get to explore the 20th century through all of these viewpoints. And I believe the majority of them are Black women in either the UK, I think some are in Nigeria. And so, personally, as an American, it was fascinating to read about these experiences in the 20th century. I know very little about the UK in the 20th century period, much less through the Black experience there. So that was stunning. But the writing, I remember I read this probably one of the worst weeks of my life. I was not doing okay. And it just sucked me in. I couldn't care about what was making me anxious because I was just in the flow of the words. I was just in the sentences. I was completely swept away and just following all of these engaging, intriguing women. I don't want to say that these are all just like women who you're like, yeah, I love you. Like, no, some of them are like, they have problems. Even if they are marginalized, they also have their own isms that they kind of perpetuate, whether that's a product of their timeness or whatever. And there are hard stories in there. It wasn't like it was all a good time or anything like that, but I loved it. And I know it's a fairly popular book, so, like, it doesn't really need my support, but, like, in my circles, I feel like a lot of people might not have picked it up because my circles are more, like, genre fiction, and I just think this is a contemporary literary fiction that's worth a lot of people's time, because I just think it's stunning. I think it's so well crafted and engaging, and I love how it uses the short story format to tell, like, a larger narrative that's, like, it's made for me. It's truly made for me. So those are my short story collections. I have so many other short story collections and anthologies on my TBR, most of them given to me by Evie because she's lovely. Although some I've purchased for myself, and although I can't read probably more than like 8 to 10 a year because then I'll get burnt out, I always feel like I want to read all the things. So I'm excited for next year, probably make another TBR. I am actually reading one right now. It just won't make it on the list because I don't think I'm going to finish it by the end of the year, but that's this book, and this is definitely like cosmic horror sci-fi if you are interested in that. I don't have enough read to give you a review or what I think I'll think of it, but just so you know, this is a book I'm reading right now. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a sun for new suns. That sounds fun. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.